Hi, welcome to Foreigner Storytelling in the Philippines. Well, I'd really like to introduce you, if you haven't heard of Truman Capote's work or heard any of his work, because I'm actually reading a book now which is complete stories, not the complete works, but the complete stories. And what I found with Truman Capote is that he may have you reading a few pages and completely have you engrossed, but not of any huge impact is what I found. And then suddenly something will, in the last page, something will really captivate you. Now, maybe I'm a softie when I'm looking at things like this, because I read some of this particular story, let me see, A Christmas Memory, which became a very famous one for him, because Capote had a movie that was an extraordinary performance by Geraldine Page, who played the lady who was the cousin of Capote, and her name was Sook Falk. And this was a very special lady. Here's a description in the introduction. It says, the cousin, he was left. It says, these areas centered around not sexuality, but the deep encouraging devotion he received in childhood from a particular cousin, from the places he and that friend frequented in their games and devotions. The cousin was Miss Sook Falk, a woman so slender in her concerns and affections that many thought her simple-minded, though she was only and admirably simple. And in the years that she and young Truman Capote shared a home, she gave him the enormous gift of a dignified love, a gift he had never received from any closer akin. So that was where he met and absolutely adored his friend. And in A Christmas Memory, he doesn't refer to her as Sook, he refers to her as his friend. And here's a description. He says, just today the fireplace commenced its seasonal roar. A woman with shorn white hair is standing at the kitchen window. She is wearing tennis shoes and a shapeless grey sweater over a summer calico dress. She is small and sprightly. She was actually quite old, like a bantam hen, but due to a long youthful illness, her shoulders are pitifully hunched. Her face is remarkable, not unlike Lincoln's, craggy like that, and tinted by sun and wind, but it is delicate too, finely boned, and her eyes are sherry-coloured and timid. "Oh my!" she exclaims, her breath smoking the window pane. "It's fruitcake weather," which is a great play on words, because as she was considered a little simple by those who didn't understand the idea that it was fruitcake weather, is one in which is a double play on word, and she and Truman made fruitcakes, and that was one of those things. So he said, we are each other's best friend. I am 7, she is 60-something. We are cousins, very distant ones, and we have lived together well, as long as I can remember. Other people inhabit the house, relatives, and though they have power over us and frequently make us cry, we are not, on the whole, too much aware of them. We are each other's best friend. Truman Capote was almost like an abandoned child. His mother was 16 when she married and had him, and then within a year after the birth of Truman, she abandoned him to various cousins, of which this lady was one. But on to the story itself. And I'm not going to do the whole story, but it's enough to know what They would do all kinds of projects. They would make fruitcakes, and they would give the fruitcakes away, but they had to find the ingredients, and one of the ingredients for her fruitcakes was whiskey. Anyway, in this particular case, she said, "I feel warm and sparky as those crumbling logs, carefree as the wind in the chimney. My friend waltzes around the stone." They each had a tiny little sip. The hem of her poor calico dress punched between her fingers as though it were a party dress. "Show me the way to go home," she sings, her tennis shoes squeaking on the floor. "Show me the way to go home." Enter two relatives. Remember, other relatives are living in the same house and they have power over them. Two relatives, very angry, potent with eyes that could scold, tongues that scald. Listen to what they have to say, the words tumbling together in a wrathful tune. "A child of 7? Whiskey on his breath? Are you out of your mind? Feeding a child of 7? Must be loony. Road to ruination. Remember Cousin Kate? Uncle Charlie? Uncle Charlie's brother-in-law? Shame, scandal, humiliation. Kneel, pray, beg the Lord." Queenie, our dog, sneaks under the stove. My friend gazes at her shoes. Her chin quivers. She lifts her skirt and blows her nose and runs to her room. Long after the town has gone to sleep and the house is silent except for the chimings of clocks and the sputter of fading fires, she is weeping into a pillow already as wet as a widow's handkerchief. "Don't cry," I say, sitting at the bottom of her bed and shivering despite my flannel nightgown that smells of last winter's cough syrup. "Don't cry," I beg, teasing her toes, tickling her feet. "You're too old for that." "It's because," she hiccups, "I am too old. Old and funny." "No, not funny. You're fun. More fun than anybody. Listen, if you don't stop crying, you'll be so tired tomorrow we can't go cut a Christmas tree." She straightens up. Queenie jumps on the bed, where Queenie is not allowed to lick her cheeks. "I know where we'll find pretty trees, Buddy, and holly too, with berries big as your eyes. It's way off in the woods, further than we've ever been. Papa used to bring us Christmas trees from there, carry them on his shoulders. That's 50 years ago. Well now, I can't wait for morning." So they go and they pick their Christmas tree and they do their things. And then, let me see. This, I thought, was an extremely poignant thing at the end. She has always been very religious, this lady, and everything is down to the Lord. If it was good news, it was praise the Lord. If it was bad news, it was the Lord wants us to learn a lesson. But always it was praise the Lord, and she thought of God in that way. But then they're out, the wind is blowing, and nothing will do till we run a pasture around below the house where Queenie has scooted to bury her bone. And there we unreel our kites, and we feel them twitching on the string like skyfish as they swim into the wind. Satisfied, sun-warmed, we sprawl in the grass and peel satsumas and watch our knees, our kites cavort. And they bring the kites together. For Christmas, he made her a kite, and for Christmas, she made him a kite. And then they go out and they fly their kites together. This is a 7-year-old and a 60-something-year-old lady with white hair. So suddenly, my friend cries, suddenly alert. "My, how foolish I am!" Suddenly alert, like a woman remembering too late she has biscuits in the oven. "You know what I always thought?" she asks in a tone of discovery, not smiling at me, but a point beyond. "I've always thought a body would have to be sick and dying before they saw the Lord. And imagined that when he came, it would be like looking at the Baptist window, pretty as coloured glass with the sun pouring through, such a shine you don't know it's getting dark. And it's been a comfort to think of that shine taking away all the spooky feelings. But I'll wager it never happens. I'll wager at the very end the body realises the Lord has already shown himself, that things as they are, and her hand circles in a gesture that gathers clouds and kites and grass and Queenie pouring earth over her bone, that things as they are, just what they've always been. And that was seeing him. As for me, I could leave the world today with today in my eyes. I should read that again. As for me, I could leave the world with today in my eyes. I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful line. I'll read the rest of the story because it's only a page. This is our last Christmas together. Life separates us. Those who know best decide that I belong in a military school, and so follows a miserable succession of bugle-blowing prisons, grim, Rivali-ridden summer camps. I have a new home too, but it doesn't count. Home is where my friend is, and there I never go. And there she remains, puttering around the kitchen, alone with Queenie, then alone. Buddy dear, she writes in her wild, hard-to-read script, yesterday Jim Macy's horse kicked Queenie bad. Be thankful she didn't feel much. I wrapped her in a fine linen sheet and rode her in the buggy down to Simpson's pasture where she can be with all her bones. For a few Novembers she continued to bake her fruitcakes single-handed, not as many, but some, and of course she always sends me the best of the bunch. Also in every letter she encloses a dime, wadded in toilet paper. See a picture show and write me the story. But gradually in her letters she tends to confuse me with her other friend, the buddy who died in the 1980s. More and more 13ths of the month are not the only days she stays in bed. A morning arrives in November, a leafless, birdless coming of winter morning, when she cannot rouse herself to exclaim, "Oh my, it's fruitcake weather." And when that happens, I know it. A message saying so merely confirms a piece of news some secret vein had already received, severing from me an irreplaceable part of myself, letting it loose like a kite on a broken string. That is why, walking across the school campus on this particular December morning, I keep searching the sky, as if I expected to see, rather like hearts, a lost pair of kites hurrying toward heaven. Knowing that they shared the thing together of flying kites, for him to keep searching the sky, as he said, as if I expected to see, rather like hearts, his and hers, a lost pair of kites hurrying toward heaven. Thank you for being with us. This was a story from Truman Capote, of course, not mine. That's all from me. Bye for now. This is a foreigner storytelling in the Philippines.